Let's finish it off here with the Baltimore Ravens. They need an edge rusher, a defensive end. Aaron, you put that down on the list. I guess there is a difference between edge rusher or edge and defensive end, and then there's cornerback.
When you're running a 3-4, yes,
I guess that's a thing. They have picks 14, 45, 76, and so on. Dylan, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Purdue guy. And I know you might be thinking, got ties to Purdue. No, George Carlaftis. And I'm not laughing here. George Carlaftis. You look at this guy last year at Purdue, 4.5 sacks. Go back to his freshman year in 2019. Throw out 2020. The Big Ten played like 5 games. 7.5 sacks in 2019, right? 2 forced fumbles this year. The guy's an absolute beast. You put him on the outside, he can make plays. I mean, this is a defensive end that the Baltimore Ravens need. You lose a Calais Campbell. The defense is getting older. Bring in a guy with a high motor like Carlaftis. He can come in there, make some plays. And look at that. I mean, he's got enough speed to get to the end zone. Put him at running back, huh? What about JK? Same conference there, Big Ten, whatever. No, Carlaftis is good. He can make plays on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's a great fit for Baltimore, who's still, you saw it, D-end, edge. I mean, he could fit the bill there. I think he's a great pick at 14, and I think he could make plays on that defense.
It's a good pick.
I like Carlaftis.
Dylan, I know the reason why I did that for you is I didn't know if we didn't get to talk too much in pre-production. Did you need to go to Schetzel's class? Are you doing that? Or are you okay? Got it. I just want to make sure. I'm trying to be a good friend. I'm just trying to be a good friend. What a piece of shit. Not going to class.
Appreciate you.
AJ,
hey, join the club, baby. Join the club.
Now he's got it on tape that he told you to go to class and you declined.
Thinking ahead. AJ, we'll let you go next. Who do the Baltimore Ravens
I'm the one that went a little. Sorry about that. I'm the one that went a little different here. I see the DN, the cornerback, and the edge and everything. My belief here is that the Ravens are really good at getting talent on the defensive side of the ball. I know they lost some pieces, but I know that they were also really banged up last year. So they may bring back some guys that they're really high on. And we know on the offensive side of the ball, they really love to run the ball. So I went with the best center in the draft. And as some people are saying, the best center they've drafted in the PFF era, that's Tyler Lindenbaum out of Iowa. This guy is another true stud. 6'3", 290, high football IQ. He's great in the run game. He moves. He's the centerpiece of this unit, and they all move together. He loves to get to the second level. When he has a free run to the second level, it's like a missile just being shot out. He's 95.4 overall grade last season. Like, think about that. He does so much. This line depended on him almost all season long. And I believe if you put him in the game in the Baltimore Ravens uniform, having him on those run schemes with a Lamar and a JK and what other running backs they put back there, they're going to be one of the hardest teams to stop in the run game once again. So I like this pick right here, especially with it being one of my first assessments of the draft. Obviously, I'll change 1,000 times, but this is a good look at the very least. And I don't think they'd be upset at all with doing that.
From what I've been seeing on him, he is climbing. I've said that a lot. He is climbing up to the point for me as one of the best players, if not the best player, the most talented player in this draft, in my opinion. And I might be maybe a stretch early on, but from what I've seen, he seems to be one of the best. And I before I made my pick, I was torn between him and the guy I did pick. And because they did lose Bradley Bozeman, so it's a huge loss for them. And to be able to I feel like if you put him at center for Baltimore, it would be like you didn't even lose your center. I feel like that's like the transition. Right
I think it's early for a center. I think pick 14 is a little early. You might see a scenario where they trade down or trade back. I do think Linderbaum's going to be gone earlier than he normally would go, just because he's that good. But I do think 14 is a little early for a center. And I'm worried because it's such a deep edge rushing. They need some help on defense. Like you mentioned, they always draft good defensive players. They do. But last year, their secondary struggled because they got hurt. Their defensive line couldn't get to the quarterback. They couldn't really stop anybody defensively last year. I thought the loss of Zadarius Smith told me Baltimore's going to have to go defense with their first round pick. But again, you might see a situation where they feel like there's some good depth there that they could trade back, maybe still get a Lindenbaum, pick up an extra pick. If they can get it, then obviously I like I said, I think the defensive line needs help. I'm going with the best defensive lineman. Perhaps we talked about best defensive line or offensive center. Maybe the perhaps defensive line we've seen in a really, really long time. I got to find his thing though. I can't find him. Where's it at?
It's probably spelled with a J, not a T.
There.
Yeah, shut up. Anyways, we're talking about Jordan Davis. You're talking about a guy who is just, his size is unreal. It's massive. He plays with pop. He's crazy strong. We've never really seen a guy this big. He's almost 350 pounds on the defensive side of the ball. He's bigger than offensive linemen. He can play both the 0 and 3 technique. Don't worry, Dylan. I'll explain that to you after. He does over pursue at times, but in 2021, he won the Bednarik Award, which was the best defensive player, and also the Outland Trophy, which is the best defensive line or best lineman on either side of the ball. So that includes the offensive lineman. Jordan Davis is an absolute monster. And I think this guy is going to be a force to reckon with. And again, I'm going to give you a player comp that you guys should know and should love.
Henderson.
He reminds me a lot of John Henderson.
Big John Henderson, baby. Let's go.
So I really, really like Jordan Davis here. I think Baltimore could use that. He fits that. You mentioned when you got picked, Pittsburgh kind of fit that scheme. I think that's what Jordan Davis can do here. And Dylan, he can play both the 0 and 3 tech.
Oh,
do you know what that means?
Count to 3.
Okay. It means he can play that nose guard position, or you can move him outside between a guard and a tackle. So he's not stuck being this big body that, you just stick right in the middle of the defense and say, you got to stay there. He's very versatile. He can play either. So Jordan Davis to me is one of my favorite players in this draft.
When I played football, it was always ABC gap, no 1, 2, 3 gap.
Kid still doesn't know his ABCs though.
Offensively, you run ABC gaps.
Defensively is 1, 2, 3s.
Defensively, they're numbered. You could call them A, but you're not really, you're not playing a gap. You're playing off the position of the offensive lineman. So if you're playing 0 tech, you're head up on the center. If you're playing 3 tech, that means you're on the outside shade in between the guard and the tackle.
Cool.
And that's why you are the X's and O's of this show. I will finish it off, and I will go with AJ's second favorite. I know he battles them with Florida. I know both.
I will slap you through this computer.
I will see you in 2 hours.
I will be giving the Baltimore Ravens and saying that they need to go out and take Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. He led the ACC in sacks with 11.5 sacks. He led the ACC in tackles for a loss with 17.5. This dude is a baller. He was a beast at Florida State this past year, and a lot of people would say, oh, he had to go to Florida State to play easier competition. He couldn't hack it at Georgia, but that isn't even true either. That's what I've heard. That's what I hear people saying. He couldn't hack it at Georgia, but in the 7 games at Georgia, he had 16 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, and 5 sacks. Let me put it to you this way. Azeez Ojulari went in the first round last year to the New York Giants and had a pretty good season. He, in those 7 games, had 17 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 4.5 tackles for a loss. So worse than Jermaine Johnson. This dude is a beast and obviously fits the need of an edge rusher for the Baltimore Ravens. That is exactly what he can do. He can bring the pressure. Him and Odafe away, man. Sign me up for that. I'd love to see it. Book it. Jermaine Johnson.
Second
Baltimore
best
Ravens.
Johnson to step foot at Florida State. Mr. AJ, number 1.
And I just want people to understand here. Listen to the guys we just talked about. Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, Walker. There was so much depth on that line, on that defense at Georgia. Jermaine Johnson would have had to be a 5th-year senior to put up one fantastic season, hoping he wouldn't get injured to go into the NFL. He made a business decision, and it paid off really well. Just one.
He's an absolute freak. Dude is super crazy explosive. I love him. I'm glad AJ didn't spend a lot of time on him. We would have just called him a homer. We know how much he praises Florida State, but he's not lying here. Like, this guy is an absolute stud. I worry about him going against bigger tackles when he gets up in them. But when you're an edge rusher and you're trying to get to the quarterback, we've seen it over and over again in this league. Speed kills. I mean, when you get guys the size of a Micah Parsons and some of these thinner guys that are just running around these bigger tackles, I love Johnson. I thought he was an absolute freak. Yeah, sign me up. If they can get him, that's That's big time.
And Aaron, he's a workhorse too. Like you mentioned the bigger guys, and of course that's going to be an issue. But he's that type of guy, the work ethic. And I read a couple different things on him when I was watching him play. Like once he's beat, he finds a way that doesn't happen again. And it's going to take some time, obviously, but he's a workhorse. So I think he'll find his weaknesses and attack them very, very tough in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he is what we call on this show an athlete. So he would be good.
Athlete with an F. It's athlete.
Athlete.
Are we throwing an extra A in there? Athlete? Or are we just saying
athlete?
Athlete.
Like
Got
athlete.
it. There
We'll put them all together. Looking for a dunk like an athlete.
Oh my goodness. All right.